making a webinar series about presentation research result. I just only thinking just one. This situation from March until now, we are still pandemic COVID, but the research is must be continue, because the research is very important thing to know about the everything, included the medicine for the COVID-19. And then I'm invite several university from Indonesia and from Philippines. Together collaboration, they are experienced making several research indicated about pandemic COVID or around about pandemic COVID. I hope this webinar series international is valuable, not only for Indonesia, but for Philippines too. And then we have a lot of experience from all of the lecture in here, what kind they are activity for research. Thank you very much. Terima kasih kepada semuanya. Dengan mengucapkan bismillah, maka saya buka acara webinar series hari ini. Bismillahirrohmanirrohim. Terima kasih. Wabillahi taufik wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Maraming salamat.
Thank you so much, Ibu Lili Nurlaili, for the opening remarks. And now our webinar with the team presentation of research results related to the COVID-19 pandemic in Indonesia and in the Philippines is open. Now to begin with, let's hear our keynote speaker. For our keynote speaker, she was the curriculum maker and developer of the Ministry of Education and Culture in Indonesia for 30 years. And now she is the Education and Culture Attaché of the Embassy of the Republic of Indonesia in Manila. Let us hear now the presentation of Dr. Lili Nurlaili. Kepada Ibu kami persilakan.
Terima kasih Mbak Manet. Saya sebagai keynote speaker akan mempresentasikan sedikit penjelasan tentang apa, mengapa, dan bagaimana pentingnya penelitian. Kebetulan paparan saya di sini karena kita masih dalam suasana 17 Agustus ini menggunakan merah dan putih. Research must continue even though the situation is still a COVID-19 pandemic. Next. Okay. All research product, I want to.
Jadi nggak Mang ya?
Okay. All research product must be beneficial for the prosperity and happiness of people's lives. In a sense, all thoughts are formulated to make a clearer future construction. Research results are expected to be in line with the National Development Strategy. Apart from quality, it is also relevant and competitive. Research is an inseparable part of almost all professions. Research affects many aspects of life, be it business, social, economic, cultural, and even health. Research is one way to find information or solutions to a phenomenon or problem that occurs in life. A research is very helpful in solving the various problems you face. Research requires a qualified ability from a person starting from the formulation of the background, the formulation of the problem, reviewing the literature, collecting data, processing data, to presenting the research result. The results of the research are very helpful for the country in facing global competition in also the difficult times of COVID-19. Mana sih nextnya? Okay. Some nation about research. Research is learning activity or study that requires a systematic and detailed investigation with the aim of the finding facts or principle of science. Research is a structured study or in-depth study using scientific methodology to solve problems and find new knowledge that can be applied in general. Another expert said that research is a systematic study process to find answers to a problem. Other researchers argue that research is a systematic, controlled, empirical, and critical study of the initial assumption of various phenomena that occurs. In general, the meaning of research is the process of studying or exploring a phenomenon that occurs using a structured, empirical, and accountable method to find new solution or information. The difference between research and non-research lies in the specific criteria characteristic present in the problem assessment. First is control. There are many factors that influence that occurrence of an event. Sometimes the occurrence of an event can be caused by many things. The factor also implies that there is an interrelated relationship between one another. In research, it is clear that we cannot control everything that affect the object of research, I mean. This is because there are many factors that we cannot control. Therefore, we only focus on measurable and controllable things to find out and measures to relationship and the result of the research. Number two is right on target. Research must be carried out based on a set of good rules and procedures so that it can be procedure appropriate, relevant, and acceptable answer to all groups. Number three is systematic. Each stage of research must follow coherent and orderly rules and procedures in order to produce quality output. Number four is valid and can be verified. Every finding that we get in research must be accounted for both personally and by others. Number five, empirical. Every research result obtained must be based on observation or in accordance with the method of collecting data from the object of research. Number six, critical. Research must be monitored and examined carefully and truthfully. This aims to keep the result obtained from the research able to find concrete solution to a problem. In the process of conducting a study, a researcher must have the following frame of mind. The procedure and stages of the research are based on scientific studies. Every study, systematic framework, and literature review. Research is made based on a solid and proven scientific foundation. Research cannot be carried out carelessly because it will affect the result of the research itself. Number two, using methods and techniques that have been tested both validity and reliability. After understanding the meaning of research, a researcher must produce data and information that can be verified and can be trusted by all groups. The existence of validity and reliability proves that the rules we use are correct. Number three, research is designed so that the results are accurate, unbiased, and objective. Basically, researchers certainly want to prove new facts and information in a phenomenon. However, whatever the result will be, The researcher must not impose his will in presenting the research result. All research results from today's international webinar have followed the appropriate research procedures and stages as described above. Terima kasih, maraming salamat. Thank you. Makasih, Mbak Manet.
Thank you so much, Ibu, for giving us a brief information. And now let's proceed to our next session, the presentation of our guest speaker for today. We have 4 guest speakers. So for the first guest speaker, she is the lecturer in Buleleng Health Institute since 2008 until now. She is responsible for coordinating and teaching of nursing diploma 3 study program. And now let's hear the presentation of Ms. Made Martini. To Ibu, you may start your presentation. I'm sorry, Ibu, you're still mute. Okay.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Swastiastu, selamat pagi, salam sejahtera, namo buddhaya. Before I start my presentation, I would like to thanks for the time that was given to me to present my presentation in this international webinar. And then I would like to introduce myself. My name is Made Martini. Usually my student call me Bu Martini. Yeah, I come from Buleleng. Buleleng is a small regency in the North Bali province, and I work in the Stikas Buleleng. I have been working there 5 years, and then this is first time I presented my presentation in international webinar. I hope my presentation can give more information for all. Okay, let me start the presentation, maybe. Okay, thank you. During the COVID-19 pandemic, I tried to write the 3 articles about the CPR, about the mini reset of blended learning. But on this great opportunity, I would like to explain about the psychological impact of COVID-19 on health worker in the emergency room as a literature review. Next. Okay, I have to divide my presentation into 4 points. Firstly, about the background, and I want to give you some background, and then a second one I will explain about the method of literature review, and the next one I will explain about the result and discussion, and the last one I will explain about the conclusion on the literature review. Next. Okay, if we talk about the COVID-19, I think it's all of audience in international webinar already know. Yeah, COVID-19 is a disease, is dangerous disease. Can transmission from person to person, and then we have to prevent this disease because of COVID-19 is the causes by the new coronavirus that emerged in China in December 2019. COVID-19 can be served, and some cases have causes a death. As we know, there is currently no vaccine to protect again COVID-19, and the best way to protect ourselves is avoid being exposed to the virus that cause COVID-19. If we talk about the impact of COVID-19, I think is all of sector have been infected of COVID-19. For example, economic sector, social, and especially on the healthcare system. Next. Next. Okay. From this picture, we can know about the global situation of COVID-19. I get from the Indonesia Minister of Indonesian Ministry of Health. This is nowadays COVID-19 more higher than before. And then as we know, we can see from this graphic, yeah, in some area in Indonesia, on a province, the most significantly happened in Java Island, Indonesia. COVID-19 not only a person in Indonesia or Philippines has been infected, but all of the world. This is a global problem. Yeah. Next. Okay, let's I explain with English. Sorry, this is in Indonesian language. Yeah, based on the picture, we can see the timeline so that when the event happen, in this picture start from COVID-19 event have when the event happen in start from January 30, 2020. World Health Organization settled COVID-19 as a public health emergency of international concern. And then on February 4, 2020, based on regulation of Indonesian Ministry of Health, yeah, the determination of COVID-19 as a type of disease that can cause epidemic and afford to overcome them. And then on the March 2, 2020, Indonesia reported 2 cases of confirmation COVID-19. Yeah. And then on March, 31 March 2020, based on the presidential decision number 11 2020, COVID as a public health emergency. On March 20, this is on the March. World Health Organization has settled COVID as a pandemic. And then the last one, on April 13, 2020, President decision number 12, 2020, COVID-19 as a national disaster. Next. Okay, from the graphic, so that the government of Indonesia has reported 139,549 person compare of COVID-19, and that they have been 103 have recovered from the COVID-19. And then there have been 6,150 patients that's related to COVID reported. Yeah, next. Okay. Okay, when we talk about the emergency room is the room or department in a hospital where people who have a sharp injury and sudden illness are taken for emergency treatment. Health workers who work there maybe have a psychological impact because of the lot of duty, and it can make burnout. In the other hand, health worker in emergency room as the first line to face the COVID-19. Working in the emergency department entails high work pressure and stress due to witnessing human suffering and the unpredictable nature of the work. The involvement put personnel at risk of burnout. And then health worker have high infection risks owing to treating patients with COVID-19. And during a COVID-19 pandemic, health workers on emergency room have experienced a variety of mental health challenges, especially burnout and fear, which warrant attention and support from policymakers. Next. From this picture, so that health worker death diagram. And the diagram so that we can see from the card, yeah. So about the number of people who are dead because of COVID-19 in this card, so that the number of the doctor dead more higher than a nurse. Yeah. Next. Okay. This is the objective my literature review. First, describe about the characteristic of study and respondent based on the result of the literature review. And the second one, describe the factor that affect the physiology of healthcare worker during the COVID-19 pandemic, especially in emergency department room. And the last one, analyzing the physiological impact of healthcare worker in emergency room. Next. This is a research question about literature review. Yeah. Next. This is a benefit of the literature review. The first one, theoretical benefit is hope that this literature review can be used a material to provide information and development of science in the field of nursing, especially the physiological impact of health worker on duty in emergency room. And the second one is benefit for future researchers. Is hope that this literature review can be used as a source of information and a reference in conducting researching on the physiological impact, especially in emergency room. Next. This is the method by using the literature review. The inclusion criteria used in the third part literature review on this research journal publication from 2015 until the 2020 Journal of Article in Indonesia and English, full text and open access as an original article, quantitative research method, the subject of health workers who were on duty during the COVID-19, especially on emergency department room. Next. This is a search strategy from literature review. There are 3 databases, Google Scholar, PubMed, Science Direct, and I use keyword impact physiological COVID healthcare worker emergency room. And I use the full text and open access from the article. Yeah, next. This is criteria inclusion, inclusion criteria and exclusion criteria. We call a PICOS. Yeah, P participant. Inclusion of participant is healthcare worker who work in the health services, especially emergency room during a pandemic COVID-19, and then the not give intervention and comparison, and the criteria inclusion of outcome is explained about the factor that cause the physiological impact of healthcare worker, especially who are working in emergency room in to face the COVID-19 pandemic, and design study or study is not experimental research correlation and observational research. Next. Next. Okay, we will move into the result and discussion, maybe. Yeah. Please show the Prisma flowchart. This is the diagram about the Prisma flowchart. There are 4 steps in the Prisma flowchart. There are identification, screening, eligibility, and article analysis. I have been analysis 13 article in the identification. The result from 3 database: Google Scholar 34 article, and PubMed 190 article, and Science Direct 416 article. And then I have to do a screening of the journal, a screening result of abstract and title. There are Google Scholar 10 article, PubMed 30 article, and Science Direct 319 article. I have been analyzed of the literature review. There are 13 article. Next. Because the limited of the time, I can show the a table of the result of literature review, but this is some of the article. Yeah. Next. Next. Yeah. This is the result and discussion about my literature review. The result of factors that cause a psychological impact on the healthcare worker. First, about the lack of knowledge and experience. Maybe some health worker have a lack of knowledge and experience. And then the second one, about the lack of support from family and surrounding. There are stigma in society. And then the third, fear spread to his beloved family. Health worker fear spread to his beloved family and those around him. And then the burnout in emergency department during the COVID-19 pandemic. And the last one, about the lack of existing facility and infrastructure, especially the provision of PPA. PPA is mean personal protective equipment. Health worker who work in the emergency room should be using a minimal PPA, PPA level 2, especially when they do some procedure. For example, nebulizer, suction that can make aerosol. In the pack, in the hospital, the proportion of PPA is not enough. It can make the psychological impact to the health worker. Next. 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 Yeah. Maybe can show the discussion about the literature review, please. Next. Next, maybe you can see the next slide. Yeah. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is the discussion and result about the my literature review. There are physiological consequences. There are general symptoms. Maybe some health worker feeling sad, feeling tired, having trouble sleeping, excessive anger, quickly discouraged, feeling confused, having trouble of the concentrating and anxiety. A specific symptom, they have depression, stress, fear, and anxiety. Next. Next. And the characteristic of respondent. Mental illness can affect anyone. Some people who are at the higher risk of developing mental illness, such as suffering for mental disorder, and the woman, the depression and anxiety more than men. People in the stressful job, such as healthcare worker, especially who work on emergency department, and then a health worker are people who job in to protect and improve the health of their community. And then together this health worker, all their diversity make up the global health workforce. Healthcare worker in emergency room are more dominated by nurse, about the 60%, and the doctor for 40%. Yeah, next. And about the knowledge and experience, the knowledge and experience are important thing to carry out action in emergency room. Most action require speed and accuracy, so that if the knowledge and experience of healthcare worker are minimal in the implementation of services and also related to COVID-19, it will affect social resiliency and mental health. Next. Healthcare workers who work in emergency room were afraid and anxious about spreading into their family and surrounding, and also some health workers still do not understand about preventing the transmission of COVID-19. This is because of COVID-19 can be transmitted from human to human via droplet or airborne. COVID-19 can spread from human to human is the main source transmission, so that it spread become more aggressively. Transmission of COVID-19 of symptomatic patient occur through droplet that come out when coughing, sneezing, and also airborne. It can make psychological impact to the health worker. Yeah. And then stigma in society. Okay, family supports and community as the most important thing to improve coping mechanism for health worker. But most of family and community have a negative stigma in society related to health worker, especially those working in the emergency room. Factors that affect the risk of contracting and transmitting working in the high risk unit: work experience, social stigma, family support, and inadequate facilities that can prevent the transmission of COVID-19 to health worker. This is about the stigma in society. Is a lot of stigma in society can make the psychological impact to health worker. Yeah, next. This is about burnout. Yeah. When they were working in emergency room, health worker, they have so many duty. For example, some procedure invasive action such as suction, nebulizer, intubation, and other things that cause aerosol, they have to use a PPA. PPA, personal protective equipment, at a level 3. They have to use a glove and face shield and masks, yeah, and then surgical masks and 19.5 respiratory masks, yeah, disposable glove and isolation gown. It's necessary to prevent the patient from placing fluid, but often health workers have difficult obtaining PPA and don't understand how to use. It can make fatigue, fear, and anxiety when they carrying out this action or tasks. One of the factors affecting the anxiety of her worker in carrying out their duty is the lack of facility that can prevent transmission of COVID-19 to health worker. The psychological impact experienced by health worker, especially those working in emergency room, will affect the quality of service. Next. In my conclusion, nurse dominated the number of health workers in emergency room. Most of a woman health worker experience the psychological impact COVID-19, a psychological impact that often occur in health worker, especially those working in emergency room, including feeling of fear, anxiety, and depression. A good coping mechanism is needed to reduce or eliminate the psychological impact of COVID-19. Support from all parties, for example, a family, their family, community, and government. Next. This is a reference, and this is a closing statement. Before I close my presentation, stay safe and healthy, safe health worker, and keep spirit to face the COVID-19. Thank you. The time I will give to the moderator.
Thank you so much, Ibu Madam Martini, for your presentation. And now we will proceed to our next speaker. Before we proceed to our next speaker, we would like to remind our participants, if you have any question or clarification regarding the presentation, you may type it in the Q&A box. And then later we will have the question and answer session. Sekali lagi kami ingin menginformasikan kepada semua peserta jika ada pertanyaan bisa diketikkan di bagian Q&A. And now let's proceed to our next speaker. For our next speaker, she is the director for the International Affairs Office of the Polytechnic University of the Philippines, and also she is assistant professor. Please let me help welcome Assistant Professor Ms. Jonna Carla CBN. To Ms. Jonna, you may start your presentation.
Hello, good morning, everyone. First of all, good morning to Dr. Lily Norlaili for giving us a chance once again to be part of this webinar, international webinar about the research presentations results of a study regarding COVID-19. So with regards to the presentation, it was nice that different countries, particularly Indonesia here and the Philippines, are doing this collaborative work in order to make comparisons of how is the COVID-19 going on with regards to the different situations that we are facing right now. So it's very essential that each individuals are very much knowledgeable and aware of what is going on within the society, since knowledge about something would give us to a better understanding as well as better practices of what we're supposed to do, especially right now when we are facing this very challenging time. It's not only here in the Philippines, which we are having some problems, but here also the whole world is suffering from this pandemic outbreak. So let me have my presentation about understanding COVID-19, a study on the knowledge, attitudes, and practices toward COVID-19 among selected students across sectional survey. So for the introduction, as we all know, last December 2019, there had been an outbreak of severe respiratory syndrome, coronavirus 2 infection, which occurred in Wuhan, Hubei province in China and beyond. And so, February 12, 2020, the World Health Organization named the disease caused by novel coronavirus as COVID-19 because of its high transmission and very quick transmission of the disease from person to person. At the same time, it's considered to be highly infectious. So it's very essential that individuals are aware of how to protect themselves at the same time to prevent the transmission of the disease not only from oneself but also to other people, especially people whom you get in contact with. So, as you could see here, I know everybody is familiar with the symptoms of the COVID-19. It had been discussed and it had been shared to us by the World Health Organization, the different departments concerning the health with the different countries. At the same time, a while ago, it had been mentioned by our one of our speakers that the symptoms would be including some respiratory problems such as cough, shortness of breath. Also, other symptoms would include the fever, sore throat, and headache. And for everybody to know some of the things taking place in the Philippines, take a look at this. So, February 2, 2020, the Department of Health documented the first case of the COVID-19 in the Philippines. March 8, 2020, the Presidential Proclamation number 922, Philippines was declared to be in a state of emergency. And then the National Capital Regions was placed under a community quarantine. So here in the Philippines, it varies from certain degrees as to an enhanced community quarantine, or it could be a modified enhanced community quarantine, a general community quarantine. At the same time, it differs from places or from locations depending on the number of the cases being infected. And March 17 to April 12, 2020, the lockdown of the entire Luzon Island, one of the islands here in the Philippines, had taken place. And the IITF, or the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases, extended the enhanced community quarantine until April 30, 2020. And so it continuously happens. August 3 to 18, 2020, the National Capital Region, particularly here in Manila, it has been back to MECQ because there had been a request of the healthcare workers, particularly doctors, nurses, and the medical frontliners, just to give some free time to prevent the further spread of the infection, because as had been mentioned by the government of the Philippines, we can't just continue on an entire lockdown because it has a great impact in the economy of the Philippines. That's why it has to be in a general community quarantine wherein there are less restrictions. However, there are still limits. And then just recently, after August 18, 2020, the National Capital Region is back to the general community quarantine. So this is what I've been mentioning earlier. We have the enhanced community quarantine. 100% are encouraged and informed to stay at home, wherein these are the things: exercises, gatherings not allowed, no public transports, and even flights, domestic or international. There are limits. School premises are closed even up to now. Even our opening of classes had been postponed. Supposed to be it's August, but it was told to start by September, but we're still waiting for further announcements because there are some news that it might be moved to October once again. In the government, we have a skeletal on site, others work from home. I think this is also applicable with other countries. Then the phase two, which is the modified ECQ, same thing, 100% stay at home. However, there are some difference with the enhanced one because here gathering could be allowed. However, it's restricted to 5 maximum people only. No public transport, but biking and non-motorized transport are encouraged. There is controlled inbound travel for OFWs or the returning Filipinos, no inter-island travel. And then still the school premises were closed, government, skeletal on-site, work from home. And then here, right now, we are in GCQ. The National Capital Region is in general community quarantine. Those who are vulnerable, particularly the elderly, those who are suffering from other diseases, would be required to stay at home. The transmitters or the youth also. And then there are limited contact sports. There are restrictions as to the number of people who could stay out. Public transport, however, there should be an observance of strict social distancing with safe distancing. Inter-island travel with safety protocols is allowed. And skeletal workforce for schools and government. We also have here the alternative work arrangements, wherein, like for example, we have MWF, you're assigned at school, and the rest of the days you will be working from home. So this is the challenge that the Philippines is facing right now. As you could see here, just to give an update on the number of cases here in the Philippines, this was taken as of August 17, 2020. This is from the World Health Organization. As you could see in the line here, there is an increase in the number of the affected cases. This began with some parts of April and up to August. As you could see, there is really a drastic increase in the number. And here are the confirmed cases, a total of 164,474 as of August 17. Deaths were recorded to be 2,681, and recoveries are now 112,759 cases. So this is what's happening here in the Philippines. Now, so after the introduction, you could see here a strengthened emphasis, which I would also like to reiterate not only to the attendees here, but we keep on reiterating this to protect ourselves. Use face masks, we do wash hands, we do hand washing, we avoid crowded places and avoid affected areas. And most importantly, if it's not really essential to go out, then better stay at home so as not to transmit or not to be infected by the virus. So after my introduction, the next part that I'll be presenting is about the methodology. For the methodology of the research, the conduct of the survey, I utilized the cross-sectional survey, it, into which it collects data to make inferences about a population at one point in time. So cross-sectional studies are used to assess the burden of a disease or health needs of a population. So for this kind of study, I utilize the cross-sectional survey because this will just be limited, or I conducted the survey in the early part of the August. There is just a limit, like for example, from August 1 up to August 13 or August 15, something like that. And I want to see how, or I want to see what is taking place, or what would be the answers at that point in time, considering this is very suited because we want to check on the burden of the disease, or it could be helpful, particularly in the health needs of the population. And since I am connected with a university, one of the good targets that have here are the students, particularly within the location. You might be wondering how survey is conducted. Survey is conducted through the use of Google Form. Of course, there are restrictions when it comes to meeting up with people nowadays, especially the students are advised to stay at home. So the data gathering procedure would involve a survey questionnaire which had been uploaded in a Google form, and a link was shared to the students. They were asked if they would like to participate in the survey which is conducted, and definitely at a certain period of time, as I get the results, then it has been analyzed and interpreted. For the survey questionnaire, I have here the CAP questionnaire, knowledge, attitudes, and practices. This is based on a questionnaire utilized by Zhong et al. This is a study conducted in China also about the COVID. However, it has some modifications. So with regards to the modifications here, What we did was originally CAP or knowledge, attitudes, and practices, this kind of study is utilized in the university because a group of researchers, including me, from one of the colleges here at the Polytechnic University of the Philippines, would like to know about the knowledge, attitudes, and practices of the students, faculty members, administrative employees who are working here and connected here in PUP. So we have a separate research on that. It's currently on the process. And here is one of an offshoot of that, wherein it focused only on selected students. So, with regards also to the questionnaire, I have mentioned here that there are some modifications, meaning we try to improve the questionnaire that has been utilized by Zong. And after having the modifications, the questionnaire have been validated by different faculty members, experts on a particular field, and after it was validated, it was being tested. We also conducted a pilot testing for that. And also, for CAP questionnaire, it's divided into two parts. Part one is about the demographics, wherein it tried to know more about the age, the sex, and the section of the students, but basically we'll focus on the age and the sex of the students. Part two is about the knowledge, attitude, and practices part based questions. The knowledge part included questions from 1 to 15. The attitude part included questions 1 to 15, and the practices part included questions 1 to 16. So here is the sample of the questionnaire which had been utilized and uploaded in the Google form. So here we have the title, The Knowledge, Attitudes, and Practices Towards COVID-19 Among Students in an Academic Institution During the COVID-19 and Online Cross-Sectional Survey. Here there is a message for the respondents, assuring them that their answers in the questionnaire will be held in utmost confidentiality, and also there is a data privacy notice that we have included. Here, some information which is included in the demographic profile of the student. Afterwards, to continue on with that, here are some sample questions or the sample questionnaire itself. As you could see here, for the knowledge part, we measured awareness of the students. Like what I have mentioned, there are some questions related to this. Here, 15 questions. For the attitude parts, also we have here 15 questions, which is distributed about the self, about their loved ones, and about their community, and practices would be up to 15 questions that shows the different knowledge of these people. For the knowledge part, it would talk about how well they know about the COVID, particularly the signs, the symptoms, what is the manifestation, what is the incubation period, how is the disease being transmitted. So questions revolve around those areas. For the attitude parts, it shows the thinking of the people about how mindful they are with regards to how do they think about being infected, how do they think about if they become a carrier, how do they think if their loved ones would be affected, and how do they think about keeping in mind the different things which could be done in order to prevent the spread of infection. And for the practices part, this is the actual application of what they do in order to keep themselves healthy, in order to keep their families protected, their loved ones being safe from not being infected. At the same time, their observance of the rules and the guidelines which is being imposed by the government here in the Philippines. And so, after this methodology, here are some of the results that I have gathered. So, For the demographic profile, like what I have mentioned, its focus would be on the age as well as the sex of the individuals. Out of the 63 respondents who participated in the survey, 47 are females, which is 75%, and 25% or 16 are males. So here, most of the respondents are 20 years of age, having the 33%, the greatest number of percentage. But here are college students, so we expect that the age range would be definitely like here. You might be wondering why is there a 35-year-old here. Um, One of the students here is a returning student who had stopped from studying and then go back to school. That's why that person had been part of the survey. Another, for the knowledge part of the questionnaire, as you could see here with the legend, blue, extremely aware, orange, moderately aware, yellow, somewhat aware, green, slightly aware, and violet, not at all aware. So as you could see here in the pie chart, the greatest color, color blue, which represents extremely aware, comprises the respondents' answers to the question. So in the knowledge part of the survey, 62% of the respondents are extremely aware of the general knowledge on COVID-19, such as the symptoms, the transmission, and the incubation period, as well as the prevention. So by merely taking a look at the pie chart and checking on that the result generated shows extreme awareness of the respondents about the symptoms, transmission, incubation period, and prevention would be a good result. And most especially, we could say that they are now aware since the pandemic started December. And to check this date, it's already August. As you could see, months have passed, wherein we could really expect here that people should be very much aware about the symptoms that COVID is manifesting. At the same time, what about the mode of transmission? It's a good thing that the students are aware of its mode of transmission because it could lead them on how to do safety measures that could prevent them from becoming infected. It's not only that they will be staying at home as they study or as they do their lessons and attend to their classes, but there are also other activities that they utilize that might be affecting them and putting them at risk as they deal along with the demands of their lives. Also, for the incubation period, we know that it could be reaching up to 14 days or 2-week period. That's why we undergo some isolation and some strict quarantine on that particular period, and also for the prevention. Now, after the knowledge part, here is a summary of the attitude part that we have gathered. Here, the colors are the same. However, its verbal interpretation would go like this. The blue would be now represented by strongly aware. The orange will be represented by agree. Sorry, blue is strongly agree. Orange is agree. Yellow is neither agree nor disagree. The green one is disagree. And the violet one is strongly disagree. So in the attitudes part of the survey, 40% of the respondents, as you could see here, strongly agree that it is necessary to be mindful of taking safety measures and maintaining enough supplies during the quarantine period. They also express their fear of being infected of their family members being infected by the disease, and mostly also feel bothered whenever there is an increasing death rate due to COVID-19. So as you could see here, we could get many discussions and many conclusions from the results and the attitude part of the survey. As you could see here, they strongly agree that they should keep in mind that taking safety measures is highly essential. Well, that's really good. And maintaining enough supplies during the quarantine period. Because as we all know, since there are restrictions in going out, it's safe that there are enough supply at home so that you could still suffice for the needs, particularly your physiological needs, the food, the clothing, as well as other supplies to maintain the well-being of the people. Some problems here could also because people are afraid that they may run out of stocks. Some people do hoarding wherein they buy a lot of supplies. And good thing that for those stores, what they did is that things like alcohol, tissue paper, are limited when it comes to buying. Like, for example, for a certain customer, they could only buy a single bottle or two bottles of alcohol to give way to other people who might still want to avail of that particular item. So it's essential to have a good stock at home, and they see the need of these things to keep themselves healthy at the same time. So also, with regards to government, there are some areas or mostly of the areas, especially in the first part, the enhanced community quarantine during the lockdown, they really tried to see to it that every families were given some supplies or were given these supplies in order to sustain the needs of themselves. Although it's not given every day, there were some scheduling of the distribution of the goods which are being carried out by the government. So as you could see here, 20% is that the respondents agree. As you could see here, I have mentioned they really express their fear of being infected. The fear of being infected could arise from if you become infected, you might also be a carrier that this could be transmitted to other people, especially for some people who are asymptomatic or showing no symptoms at all, and then they tend to mingle with other people, then the transmission of that would be faster. And if the resistance or the immunity of the person is not that healthy, then there is really a great percentage that the people or that person might develop into a full-blown disease. Also, we could see here their expression of being bothered whenever there is an increasing death rate due to COVID-19. I know not only in the Philippines, every day there is a certain time of the day wherein in the news, it shows they really present to people how many cases have reached this certain day. At the same time, not just how many cases have happened, but also the number of deaths. Now, if people are seeing a continuous increase in the number of deaths, then that's something that you could be very anxious about. Okay? It's not only because you don't have the disease, then you're not afraid. It's because since there is a great pandemic taking place all over your place, then fear would greatly arise. You might be thinking in the sooner days to come, there could be a tendency that you might also be infected, especially if you are actively going out, doing your job, carrying out your chores, because some people are really required to stay out, especially for the health practitioners, for the military, for the police, and other people serving as frontliners. So when you see this on news, you could really automatically feel that I feel worried, I feel bothered about the increasing rate that is being manifested in the society. So that's really something that this attitude part is essential as to the understanding of the students who took part in the survey. So after the knowledge part and the attitude part, we proceed on with the practices part. Same legend, strongly agree, agree, neither disagree, nor agree, disagree, and strongly disagree. So as you could see here, the practices part is 80% of strongly agree as given by the respondents. In the practices part of the survey, the respondents strongly agree that practicing general hygiene practices such as hand washing, disinfecting materials, and strictly observing government protocols are essential to prevent the spread of coronavirus. So, with regards to the practices part, we give an emphasis to the safety measures that we could do by ourselves. So, with hand washing, let me remind that it's not only you have water and then you put your hands running on through it, but it's essential that you observe the proper hand washing as instructed to us by the health departments. Using soap is also essential, and they have mentioned that you could count around 20 seconds for your hand washing and make sure that every surfaces, every part of it, every portion of it is being washed carefully. Also, the practice of disinfecting materials, like for example, you bought something from the store or the groceries before bringing them inside the house. Make sure to disinfect them well, because there had been reported cases, particularly here in the Philippines, there had been reported cases that some people who were not able to disinfect these materials and which had been utilized at home, they were thinking that that's the one of the things that could have started the spread of the infection. And also, may I also remind, for some people who are into deliveries of some products or items, before bringing them inside your house, make sure to disinfect them. And also the importance of maintaining a clean body. Like for example, you went out and then you're going back to home, before you mingle with other people, make sure that you know where to put on your clothes used outside, that you wash them right away, you hang them, and they could be placed under the heat of the sun. And also making yourself clean before you interact with other people, just to make sure that you will not be a carrier of the infection. Also, they have here strictly observing government protocols are essential to prevent the spread of COVID-19. So, these are the results that have been generated from the study. And so for the analysis part, descriptive statistics is being used, which summarizes or describe characteristics of the data set. And then the data will be presented as percentages or means and standard deviations. Then significant differences between groups will be calculated using the chi-square test. And comparison will be checked by ANOVA test, and association will be checked by the chi-square. Next, for the discussion, in the study of the knowledge, attitude, and practices, people having toward the disease play an important role in determining society's readiness to accept and comply with the change measures from the government or health authorities. So some people are not really that submissive in observing these protocols. However, through the study of knowledge, attitudes, and practices, it will be a great thing to impart in the minds of the people, why is it really essential to follow these government rules? Why is it really essential to stay at home? Why is it really essential to wear mask and observe proper measures? So those are important things that we have to consider here. Aside from that, it's not just because the government have mentioned it or the health authorities have mentioned it, but people will normally and naturally feel that they have the need to comply and do these standards to keep themselves protected. So that's one of the important thing, because some people might be hard-headed, that they might be saying, I have to go out, I have to do this, and some even for non-essential things, because I want to see this person, I want to go somewhere, I want to visit somewhere. If people are well knowledgeable about what could be the symptoms, what could be the disease transmission, what could be the different processes taking place as to the development of the disease in the body, then these people will automatically make the necessary steps to keep themselves protected from being infected. Another, the results show that individuals need consistent reminders from health authorities and the government to more improve levels of knowledge, attitudes, and practices. Why? As you could notice, I have shown you the graph of the increasing rates of COVID ever since There had been reminders coming from the government, from the World Health Organization, and from other health authorities within the given place. However, there is an increase in the rise of the cases. It could be a factor that these people sometimes are not mindful of what is going on or what is taking place, and they need to keep on being reminded as to what practices they should be doing. So the reminders as well as the news are essential for people to know. It gives them the idea on what they should be doing and what are the practices they must be avoiding and what are the things that they really have to carry out in order to prevent the spread of this infection. Next, as individuals are knowledgeable about COVID-19 pandemic, it will increase their understanding of importance of strictly observing safety measures to prevent the spread of the virus and becoming infected. Like what I keep on saying, knowledge. If your knowledge is enough, it will lead to a good thinking about that because you know the importance, you know the rationale, why are you doing these things and why you should be doing those things. And a good attitude will help you do a proper behavior. Since you are aware of it, you understand it, then it could lead you to a good behavior or a good practice. We should not be selfish on what is going on. We should not simply say, I have to do this, I have to be safe, I have not to become infected. We all have to think about the welfare of other people, especially those taking care of those infected patients. They also have their families. They also want to stay at home. However, their duty calls not for them to stay at home, but for them to stay in the institution where they really have to work and they really have to care for the people. So I really appreciate the presentation of Miss Martini a while ago as to the lives of the health workers because it really reflects that people are all responsible of what is going on because if the cases continuously increase and if it's being not solved, then what will happen to the health sector of the country? Like, for example, there are shortages of the hospitals because beds could no longer accommodate the number of the patients who has to be treated. There are not enough PPEs, the protective equipments or the protective suits, another respirators, ventilators, as well as those things which are needed for intubation. What if it's no longer enough? What if it's not sufficient to maintain the lives of the people? Then that could be a problem. And what if the lives of these medical practitioners are really put into stake and their number is no longer sufficient to treat the number of the patients? Then that could be a problem. And so it's essential that we do our part in order to fight or to battle against COVID-19. So, as individuals are knowledgeable about the COVID-19 pandemic, it will increase their understanding of the importance of the safety measures like what I have mentioned. And a good practice would lead to, as much as possible, the transmission and protection not only of ourselves but also to the people who are with us. Like what I have mentioned, a good understanding of the things and awareness of the things could give us the right thinking about what should we be doing and what should we be avoiding. And through that, our behaviors will follow. So the knowledge, attitudes, and the practices really go hand in hand. And also, take a look at this video. I think this is a good eye opener for all of us to be mindful about the things that we are doing.
yourself to protect yourself from getting infected and to prevent yourself from passing the virus on to others. And please make good to know what role they, everyone on the planet needs to know what role they have to play and to be informed about what this virus is, where this virus is circulating, especially in the areas where you live, the areas where you work, the areas that you want to travel in. All of this is important. There's so much that you can do yourself to protect yourself from getting infected and to prevent yourself from passing the virus on to others. And please make good choices. I know that there are a lot of things that we want to be doing right now, but there aren't necessarily a lot of things that we need to be doing right now. There are many people, essential workers, who cannot stay at home. There are many people who are caring for patients in hospitals who cannot stay at home. And if you can, and if you can help, and if you are asked to, please stay home. You can practice physical distancing from others. You can avoid crowded places. You can avoid enclosed settings that have poor ventilation. You can clean your hands. You can practice respiratory etiquette. You can wear a mask if you cannot do physical distancing. Everyone has a role to play. And this is far from over. So we all have to play our part.
So that's a very good reminder from the World Health Organization. It's also a good thing that the Embassy of the Republic of Indonesia, through its Education and Culture Attaché, has this kind of activity, a webinar as a presentation of the research results in the study of the COVID, because it helps people be informed, be prepared, be smart, be safe, and be ready to fight hashtag COVID-19. So with that, I hope I was able to present things which might be useful and which might enlighten and encourage more people to do some active studies with regards to COVID-19. Even a single or a very simple study of this could lead to a widened understanding as to how it could be prevented. And more or less, while we are waiting for the cure or a vaccine which could be developed, then these simple learnings could be a foundation of a very fruitful thing which we are waiting in the future. So with that, once again, I am Jonna Carla Sibian from the Polytechnic University of the Philippines. Maraming salamat, terima kasih, and thank you very much once again.
Thank you so much, Prof. Jonah, for your very informative presentation. And now we would like to remind again to our participants, if you have any question or clarification regarding the presentation of our speakers, please do not hesitate to type it in the Q&A box. And then later we will raise your question during our question and answer forum. And now let's proceed to our next presenter. For our next presenter, he took his doctorate of science and technology in Kumamoto University, Japan. And he is also active in doing research, and the most current recent research are the use of user-centered design canvas for rapid prototyping. And he is also the assistant professor in informatics department, Faculty of Science and Technology in Muhammadiyah University, Sidoarjo. Now, please, let's listen the presentation of Mr. Irwan A. Kautsar. To Bapak Irwan, you may start your presentation.
Okay, thanks, Ms. Manet. My voice is clear and my presentation already showing?
Yes, sir. Everything is crystal clear.
Okay, thank you. First of all, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh for my fellow Muslim and good in health condition for my other participant. And thank you for Dr. Lily for this opportunity to have a chance for me to present in 30 minutes ahead. So before I start, and I say hello to Professor Jonah. Thank you for the presentation. It's quite interesting. And for me, I introduce myself. My name is Irwan Anas Kausar. I was teaching the Universitas Muhammadiyah Sidoarjo. So if you might curious, where is Sidoarjo? So Sidoarjo actually it's a fast-growing city in one of fast-growing city in East Java. So if there is a Manila and there is a Jakarta, Sidoarjo is a place between Jakarta and Bali. So if you go to Bali, you can, if you cannot go straight to Bali, you can go to Sidoarjo and have a car, maybe 8 to 10 hours. Okay, and this is our city in Sidoarjo city. We are next to Surabaya. Surabaya is the second biggest city number after Jakarta. So the second is Surabaya, and then the neighbor of Surabaya is Sidoarjo. So I want to say that this is a data of COVID-19 suspect that I gather for both official government. This is from Indonesia government. It's now sadly 1,000 more. So actually it's not quite different with what happened in Manila, what happened in brother and sister in Philippines. So I think we can hope that this kind of or even webinar event that from Indonesia Embassy in Filipina can help and gather more ideas and make brainstorming to the next research that we will conduct. So I hope this kind of together we can in Indonesia we said bersama kita bisa, and I hope in Philippines I said sama-sama namin mari. I hope the spell is correct. Okay. In this presentation, I will have I present 5 topics that not just one research, but all of my 5 research with the student and our team in Dian Labs. I will introduce the team later. So the first topic is about rapid prototyping. So from where we start, from where I just start rapid prototyping. Actually, just a few moments before the outbreaks, our new, young, and optimistic Ministry of Education, Mr. Nadiem Makarim, have a vision and optimistic way to increase the quality of education, which we call it in Indonesia Merdeka Belajar and Kampus Merdeka. The meaning is students have chosen to explicitly in higher education to have a 3 semester they get knowledge beyond their department, so they have opportunity to get more knowledge across university, not only across department but across university. So we call it free to learn, in a term of free to learn, and give freedom to campus to conduct what the need of the future technology, the type of education, the learning content. So the first of all, when outbreak it happened, we all know that COVID-19 pandemic forced us to have a social distance. We must do self-isolation at home and online in all aspects of education, doing in online ways, and we must implement the new health and safety protocol. But we have more parameters that we need as a lecturer to solve that, how we push more lever in online ways to have a student that need it for innovation. Then we urgently need student participant to make a collaborate. because for that basic reason, I try to implement how to rapid prototyping, because in my department, it's informatic department, research on a computer, not only computer science, but we must produce or engineer, do software engineering to having some innovation. So in this research, and I already presented in this year in international conference. So to the research question is how to rapid prototyping and enhance student innovation while social distancing. So social distancing and online learning must not have a burden to do some innovation to our student. Next is I try a simple way to doing using a framework not well known in the software area, but it's well known in the user experience area. We call it user-centered design canvas, which means it's only a framework to having prototyping in user experience, not user interface. While building a software, there is two kind of interface. Two kind of element of the interaction human and computer. It's theoretically is about interface and experience. The interface is anything that you see, like in a button, like in a Zoom, what a menu on the some software. But user experience is not visible. It's the experience. You may feel the experience accessing email client from Gmail and accessing email client from the Outlook. That's a user experience. So the thing is, user experience is the most important. And there is a framework that founded by the rectangles.com, the some company of the design experience, the consulting company, that they propose about 9 aspects of user-centered design canvas. If you heard the word of canvas, actually UCDC, it's inspired from business model canvas. And my student already knowing business model canvas have a nine parameter to design and propose a new business, but it's adapted by the rectangle.com to create a user-centered design canvas. It has 9 parameter. So what I think is we understanding to student to knowing UCDC, and we ask student, we please to student to create a groups and discuss the idea what the software that will be built as a final project in this my course. So in this experiment, we assign student, we having 2 kind of topics. The first topic is about the academic process. What is the need of information system that need for academic process? And the second one is what they need some kind of software or information system to mitigate COVID-19 pandemics. So after they discuss the idea, they do UCDC experiment. They collaborate using cloud apps and complete 9 field in a user-centered design canvas and post to the supportive tool. After the UCDC experiment, we record the complete tasks, and we ask the student about the acceptance test, and not to support the data, we doing log matrix analysis. So next, they use to collaborate in online. We suggested they use a cloud app. In this case, is Google Sheet that we already designed to complete the 9 element of user-centered design canvas, and then they submitted to our developer supportive tool. Actually, you can access the developer tool in this address. This is the example of the final project on the last semester. So this is software developed by me and team to to track the student, how they accomplish the tasks and how accomplish in how many time they need to accomplish a task. So the first one, our research is about how to collaborate with student. So after they can collaborate, we expand more ideas. What's the importance of the need? What is support having logistic in house for that support to self isolation. Of course, to support the isolation is we need support a society with less contact commerce transaction. The traditional commerce transaction go to local market or traditional market, it will be possibly and more increase to coronavirus. This is COVID-19 outbreak because there is physically contact. So actually, we try to create another e-commerce that this is the part of as suggested by our ministry. We have a collaboration between different department. So informatic department, it's my department. It's a collaboration with the Sharia banking department in our university also to create some project with Mr. Rusli as the lecturer, as the counselor from the Sharia department. I heard he will be present also in the next webinar by Philippine Embassy also. And we create some Sharia-based commerce. And next, what the point of we just create e-commerce? Not in, why we need to encourage, because when we develop by ourselves the e-commerce, and not only that, as our participation to society, we also having consulting, like a business consulting to small medium enterprise, and which is the small medium enterprise, it's belongs to our students family business. So we also help a student to grow the business. We not using the outside society, but we encourage student who have a family business to consult the business by us and have post or do transaction to our platform. But I'm sorry, this is the main result. The main result is and the main goal is we have the data how many income of just one small medium enterprise, just one small business, and one one type of business. So if we encourage small medium enterprise to the startup platform, the well-known platform in Indonesia, we don't have a receiver data, because if we do this platform and we know the data, we can show to other student, we can show to local government that this is a real transaction and real money, and this is you can help participate. You may get funding or crowdfunding and so on. So this is the importance that, but the main goal for us is we do less contact commerce transaction like the transaction in traditional market. So our contribution, we hope we can empower the microeconomics, and because we create our local marketplace, we can survive this COVID-19 pandemic with empowering decentralized economy, because the word decentralized is we empower the local area, not centralized, the opposite of centralized. So, and as I mentioned before, that if we develop our e-commerce by itself, we have the data, so we can analyze that data. Next, it's topics about another commerce, but it's more specifically it about book lending. Why book lending? Because again, for self-isolation, we need to know. And as by the fact, Indonesia is sadly we have a low literacy culture. So my student proposed to create a book lending marketplace. Actually, book lending marketplace not only single application doing one student, but it consists mobile application. It consists how to user enter the product or the book, because our application offer this feature. The special feature. Special feature is like when you enter a book, usually or you have online, you have experience as a seller in online platform and e-commerce online platform. You need to detail information about your product, the name, the size, and the price. But nowadays a book have like international book standards, international standard book number. So we research to gather user only enter the ISBN and then the system provide the data that the book that want to be lended, and user only just sell or lend. So it's the experience that need gather. Also, we encourage student not only just prototype, but must attract the commercial sector. So we can call it innovation if that invention has commercial value. So that's also my student develop the virtual account for or payment gateway. So the goal that we want to achieve is engage the literary culture. Again, it's a marketplace. It's decentralized economics, because if you lend money and you receive money, it's another opportunity to gain more money or pocket money for the student by having books. But the importance for me and teams and as an assistant professor is gaining a big data. So because we want to measure the question like how many students in the pandemics have read a books, how many books that already read it. So if students don't have a fun in reading a books, they have a big chance to doing outside activity instead of reading the books. So with book lending marketplace, we try to encourage students record what they we have a data how many students are doing learning activity in the pandemic condition. Next, still about education, the topic is mixed reality learning content. So because most education it's doing in online ways, so it's possibly strong possibility to have a student boredoms, and then affect with the inefficient learning process. So one of my students proposed about develop like mixed reality with for showing the learning content. So there is some the first one there is a web-based learning content, and then my student develop automatically the augmented reality learning development. And then the next is developing the augmented reality with a dynamic learning content. So they can just play like if they have like the virtual reality headset device, so they can access it with the virtual reality. So combination of virtual reality and augmented reality, so we call it a mixed reality. And then this is we also already published it and gain the beta testing. We have 86.5% that's satisfaction. So hope this engage more fun when a student studying. And again, to make this like an invention must be have monetized. A student must I encourage to find gamification way to engage more user. So it's we design the web-based learning content, having other participants have a paid content. So we hope it can be another segment of marketplace and decentralization. So also the important for me again is about as a reference of the big data. How many students spend while reading, when learning? So we can get more data sector and then more get linked data, so we can study more. Okay, the last one is this is the newest research that proposed by student is about protocol for contact tracing. 1 week ago, I when I have opportunity to invited by Dr. Lily about present with Prof. Jonah from Philippines. I just asked my team to what happening, actually problem in Philippines also. So I just read the news. If I'm not wrong, it's the problem now is about the tracing. Oh, it's a common problem. Indonesia also have a, the problem about how to trace people and how to trace the social interaction. So we study about what Google done with tracing. Or Google done with the tracing is using beacon device. So user that social interaction must have a smartphone that activated a beacon. Beacon is a low Bluetooth, low energy or low energy Bluetooth. I forgot the name, but it's a Bluetooth, but it's low energy. So it cannot answer the question. What if this the people don't have a beacon device, even though don't have a smartphone? How can we track? How we can trace their social contact? That's the question. So there is need. We propose the new protocol for contact tracing, which means contact tracing is we found that every country matters, every country problems is a common problem to tracing. So if furthermore with country with a more dense citizen like Indonesia, I think Philippines also, it's more difficult to trace the user have a positive impact. I'm sorry, positive suspect of COVID-19 and how many people that there have been made. So the thing is, the question: are we need the cutting edge technology? We provide a tracing control to the people or citizen and violate their privacy? The answer is no. And we propose the project name is Spice. It's a simple using a QR code. If your opponent don't have a QR code, it doesn't problem. because in Indonesia we have a citizen ID that already linked to citizen ID. We just need the citizen ID. We don't expose the name. We just if possible, we expose just the first name or the face that registered for the citizen ID. So that we actually we have this inspiration about the new culture of uh, people when pay some transaction with cashless. In Indonesia, we have a QR code from in Bank Indonesia. The meaning is the QR code standard. So why don't we just use the same experience? We just encode their citizen ID to some uh, QR code, and citizen, if they don't have a smartphone, but they by regulation, by help of government, they need to print some their care ID, or if not, just write some application to enter their citizen ID. The thing is, we just need to create a new protocol when we have a meeting. Like we go to some department store, we ask department store request who visit the department that department store visitor to scan with our apps, and then it's record that we've been here. And when we have a meeting with someone, we need to scan just one person scan, and will be saved to our database. So if illustrated like this, after I log in, this is my name, this is my ID, which mean people when or I scan my opponent like this. For example, I scan and they record our location, and if government if it's just for example, Jin, for the next 1 week he doing a rapid test, and then government can assign this ID have a positive case. That information that pushed by government will be collect or will be crawled from the government data, that we notify to my handphone that I already been contacted with my friend or my network having positive coronavirus. So I need to quickly as possible doing self quarantine. So the main goal is we expose the data for government, how many social interaction we have in some area. So this is still in prototype. We name it So I Scan, social interaction scanner. So from this, and we not track every moment. No, when we doing scan, we just record the real geolocation position. So we not record all the time. No, it's a resource, and also it can be violate the privacy. So just record when the interaction begin. So government can, we hope we can help the government to trace the contact tracing, or we call it social interaction tracing, for people who have social meeting. But we need to create new protocol. Before we meet, we must scan one of person scan that assigned to server that we have this kind of meeting. Okay. Scan QR or enter citizen ID is when we doing interact. It's adapted from cashless culture. Device record, just record the position while it's scanning happen, and if government open the access API for any test result, to assign to citizen ID, not expose the name, not expose the address. So the citizen ID will be notified to our proposed application. So that's 5 topics, the research result for 5 topics that I can share to you for participants. If you have any idea, if you have any comments, or even have any skepticism or critics, I'm very welcome to have discussion. You can reach my email, and I introduce you my lab member. It's Dian Lab. It's decentralized information, IoT, and artificial net centric. So we focus on decentralized network. I think that's it, Miss Manet. Thank you for. I'm sorry for if over time.
Thank you so much, Bapak Irawan, for your presentation. And now let's proceed to our next speaker. For our next speaker, he is a junior lecturer and researcher specializing in clinical pharmacy and biochemistry, health outcomes, respiratory system, and children health. He is from Singapore Bangsa University. Let us hear the presentation of Mr. Vesara Ardigatera. To Bapak
Okay.
Vesara, you may start your presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Manet, for the introduction to introduce me. So, hi. Today I would like to present about my research, but with the title, The Role of Vitamin D as a Drug Candidate for the Inflammatory Response in Respiratory Distress Syndrome. So we choose the vitamin D as the drug choice for COVID-19 symptom. So, but before, I would like to thank for this opportunity, especially for Dr. Lili Nurlaili and Nurse Made Martini, and then Assistant Professor Jona Carla, all speaker, and Mr. Irwan Kautsar, and of course to all participants. So, but before I share my presentation, I would like to share about our concern. This is our research fishbone. So this is my research is only a little part of the big shame under guidance of Professor Budistia Budiawan from Medical Department Universitas Pajajaran, and Dr. Tina Dewi Yudistiani from Medical, and of course my supervisor Dr. Rizky Abdullah from Pharmacy Department Universitas Pajajaran. So this is our big shame with the title, The Role of Vitamin D in Human Life for Better Health. Okay, so this is just for reminding us, what is coronavirus? How come it become a huge monster today? I could say like that, because we know that coronavirus are a large family of viruses that cause illness ranging from the common cold to more severe disease like pneumonia. This is one of the source for death, especially for patients with COVID-19. There's special severe for this condition, such as severe symptom, such as high fever, pneumonia, kidney failure, and death. And also, with the rapid transmission, such start with cough or sneezes from infected person or touching contaminated object. So, if we discuss about COVID-19 damaging effect on the body, actually, it's not only about specific organs such respiratory, but it also can affect in others such as heart, blood vessel, kidney, brain, and intestine. In this area, our research is trying to find what is the correlation between vitamin D and lungs. As we know, in lung, the virus can cause pneumonia in which the lungs become inflamed and filled with the fluid. Patient may require ventilation as the infection progresses. The virus can cause serious lung damage, which can be fatal. As we know, this is one of the death causing today. So, and then if we see about the progression of corona. This is a simple of the step how come coronavirus could make the respiratory distress syndrome. So if we could see here, it starts about severe acute respiratory syndrome, coronavirus 2, start a rapid replication in the lung, airway, and alveolar epithelial cells. These triggers lead to immune response with cytokine production, excessive inflammation, and further amplification of the immune response that trigger that cytokine storm. So it's very clear that SARS-CoV-2, it will lead to respiratory distress syndrome with cytokine storm and inflammation in respiratory system. So in this slide, we could see 4 types of healthy, infected, moderate, and severe. In severe situation of the alveolar system, we know alveolar is one of the small part in lungs. It will maintain about the gas exchange and also the flexibility of lungs. So it's very important for us. When the patient with COVID-19, they start with the difficult to breathe, it's all start with severe because their alveoli system is filled or full with the fluid. So you could see here all about the different of type between health, infected, moderate, and severe. So if we discuss about what's the idea to reduce about this situation, there's 4 options how to reduce inflammation. Start with stimulate macrophagocytosis and decrease pro-inflammatory cytokine. So we choose the second one with the decreased pro-inflammatory cytokine production. So, and then anyway, why vitamin D? First, why we choose vitamin D as the agent of inflammatory? Because first, it's cheaper relatively, and it's quite free because it can also come from sunlight. And the regular foods such as fortified cereal, cheese, eggs, salmon, tuna, and milk. Okay, as we know, in classic functional, we know vitamin D is quite good to maintain the cytoskeleton system, such as for tooth and bone. But in many research, we know vitamin D have another functional, such as we call it a modern functional, because it could have such as immune system, muscle function, cardiovascular function for healthy heart and circulation, respiratory system for healthy lungs and airways, brain development, and anti-cancer effect. So there's so many benefit of vitamin D today. So before we confirm that vitamin D as the one of agent anti-inflammatory, we're collecting more data about is that possible if vitamin D could reduce inflammation with decreasing the cytokines such as interleukin 6, interleukin 12, and TNF alpha. In other research with the title Vitamin D Deficiency in Iron Implication for Immune Protection for COVID-19, it showed that the level of vitamin D is related with the respiratory infection. So this is one of the research that firm that vitamin D have correlation to the COVID-19 with the pro-inflammatory regulation. Next, from other research from Grant et al. In 2010, they said about vitamin D could reduce risk of infection. Those mechanisms include reducing concentration of pro-inflammatory cytokines that produce the inflammation that injures the lining of the lungs, leading to pneumonia, as well as increasing concentration of anti-inflammatory cytokine. The grant also showed that vitamin D could decreasing the cytokine protein such as tumor necrosis factor, as I said before, as the TNF alpha, and also refreshing production of inflammatory cytokine or EL2. So the goal of our research is about how big the vitamin D could be a drug candidate for dexamethasone, because it's become a huge issue in Indonesia. Is that right? Dexamethasone could kill the coronavirus, with recommendation from PAHO. They said about there is no evidence for this type of use, and the drug has serious side effect when not used properly. So if we talk about dexamethasone for inflammatory system, it's not about the indication, but also we will talk about the side effect, because we know dexamethasone have bad effect sides such as moon phase, and this drug also one of the source of the it could induce to it could be a problem for kidney. And in 2018 we collect the data to prove or to confirm is that right, vitamin D could reduce anti-inflammatory, especially for respiratory disease syndrome. And in that review article, we found that hypovitaminosis D is one of the main conditions for patients with respiratory distress syndrome. In vitro studies show that deficiency of vitamin D deliver the inflammation of epithelial cell for about more than 600 genes. It proves that vitamin D have more influence, especially for genes and cell. This evidence proved that the level of vitamin D influences the risk of respiratory distress syndrome. So we start the in vitro research in 2019. So this is our background. Study have shown that lung inflammation affect lung function, causing severe threats to life, and that vitamin D could be a potential agent that plays critical roles in inhibiting the inflammatory cytokines. Also, vitamin D deficiency is related to several lung problems, including respiratory distress syndrome, alveolar inflammation, epithelial damage, and hypoxia. And what about say? This is few of the symptoms it could be come from the coronavirus. And to prove about the beneficial of vitamin D, this is our methods. So we develop a cell inflammation. So we make a model in cell model induced by lipopolysaccharide. Lipopolysaccharide is endotoxin as the inflammation agent. The effect of the treatment of vitamin D to LPS-induced inflammation in A549, we use the cell. This is the epithelial cells from our lungs, especially in alveolar type 2. In A549 cell were examined by MTT assay. So we use the MTT assay is to prove, is that right, that vitamin D could make the cell survival or from the LPS induced or from the endotoxin, while its anti-inflammatory mechanism was analyzed using Western blot. So we need to confirm, is that right, vitamin D could reduce the inflammation with the, how come the influence to the cytokine protein for inflammation. So this is a model for LPS pathway. You could see that LPS could be a model for inflammatory. So in here, we could see that LPS could release into the outer membrane, and it will activate NF-kappa beta. NF-kappa beta is one of the protein inflammatory. So when the NF-kappa beta release into the nucleus in our cell, it will release a cytokine storm. We call it inflammation response. So it will release such as interleukin-1, interleukin-6, 8, 12, and TNF-alpha. So this is my scheme for MTT-assay. We start with culture the cell, and then we count the cell for twice before we treatment into the dish with the variation of concentration with the group vitamin D, LPS, control, medium, and lipopolysaccharide. And this is scheme for Western blot. So mostly almost the same with the before. So we start with culture the cell, and then we count the cell for twice, and then put into the dish with 2 variation time in 12 and 24 hour. So then we use the Western blot to see or to explore about how impact the vitamin D and NF-kappa beta, TNF-alpha, interleukin-1, 2, 6, and 12. So this is our result. You could see here that in this group is more higher if we compare to the LPS. So it's proof that in this study, for concentration of 0.1 and 0.01 micromolar concentration of vitamin D treatment increase the cell viability or survival cell if we compare with the LPS group. So it's work relatively. And the mechanism of vitamin D in cytokine protein, we could see in NF-kappa beta in 12 and 24 hours, we could see that almost in NF-kappa beta, interleukin-1 and interleukin-6 in variation time, there were the significant result. If we compare the LPS with the vitamin D, it's shown that vitamin D could repress or could decrease about this protein cytokine. And this is for interleukin 12 and TNF-alpha. And this is the result for our Western blot. You could see here. So in mechanism of vitamin D in cytokine protein, the role of vitamin D in inflammatory response cytokine indicates that sustained downregulation of NF-kappa beta, EL1, EL6, EL12, and TNF-alpha in A549 cell co-treated with vitamin D alone and LPS plus LPS compared with LPS alone. So our conclusion indicate that our research suggests that vitamin D promotes A549 cell survival from LPS-induced inflammation via downregulation of NF-kappa beta and its inflammatory cytokines such as interleukin-1, interleukin-6, 12, and TNF-alpha in 2 types of different time. Our results show the potential vitamin D in managing of lung inflammation. So this is the supplementary data. This is I take from our review article. You could see this is the recommendation of dose of vitamin D, and and this is this recently research in Indonesia. I take from Indonesia. COVID-19 death rate by vitamin D level. So from our previously research, we know that we found that the deficiency of vitamin D is one of the problem or the source of the many of disease such as COVID-19. So this is I take from SSRN. So, and this is, does vitamin D protect against COVID-19? It could be, but once again, I need more data, I need more research to firm and to confirm about how come vitamin D could impact. So I need more data in human and animal model. So this is the recommendation. We know that one of source the vitamin D is come from sun. So this is the one of the recommendation to sunbathe, yeah, for sunbathe, for jogging, and play such as like golf. So, and this is those recommendation. To reduce the risk of infection, it is recommended that people at risk of influenza and COVID-19 consider taking about 10,000 IU per dose of vitamin D for a few weeks to rapidly raise 25 OHD concentration, followed by 5,000 IU per day. The goal should be raise 25 vitamin D concentration above 40 until 60 nanogram per milli. And for treatment of people who become infected with COVID-19, higher vitamin D dose might be useful. So thank you for my presentation and the time for a minute. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bapak Fesara, for your presentation. And now let's proceed to our next session, which is the question and answer forum. But before we open the question and answer forum, we would like to say thank you very much to all our speakers for today, from Dr. Lily Nurlaili to Miss Mada Martini to Miss Jonah Carla to Sir Irwan and also Sir Vesara. Thank you so much, sir and ma'am, for sharing your knowledge to all of our participants here today. And now we will open the question and answer. For all participants, if you would like to ask some questions or clarifications, please do not hesitate to type your question in the Q&A. Okay, as of now, we have here one question. This question is addressed to Sir Irawan. Thank you, Mr. Irawan, for sharing your amazing and innovative project. I'm Dia from Stikas Buleleng. I would like to ask how much funding you need to develop a virtual reality apps, because it will be good for nursing students and also during the pandemic to learn about practical skill. We hope we can collaborate in the future, maybe creating like game for medical skill.
Okay, should I directly answer? Or?
Yes, please, sir.
Okay. Okay, thank you from Miss Made Martini. Oh, actually, it what funny because this is actually to create virtual reality. It's in my case, it has no cost because it's a student project. Because we just in Universitas Muhammadiyah Sidoarjo have a facility to have 8 labs, computer labs that enough for student doing developing virtual reality. And even though the virtual reality doing have a high need a high resource, it will be facilitated by university. But if nurturing student to have an idea, it really we are really willing to help developing the virtuality what they make. Just contact, put the email, it will be contact. Because in informatic department we have not only me, I have also lecturer, team lecturer that research on virtual reality. Because we private university in the biggest private university in Sidoarjo. So we are now entering the not only national and international. We are willing to open our hand to collaborate with other department. Also, if you in the nurturing area, I think I will please put your email to my email irwan@umsida.ac.id, that I will give you some paper reference about profile, about publication to our college in the nurturing area that have built virtual reality to simulate the labor process. We done that last last year or last 2 year, I forgot. Please send me the email about how can I reach you. I think that Miss, I give the floor to Miss.
Thank you so much, sir, for your information. And now we have here another question from Miss Tita Rosita. This question is, I guess, this addressed to Sir Vesara. I'm Tita Rosita from Midwifery Unsika. As we know that vitamin D can be found in several foods as well as supplements. What I want to ask is, which is better to consume foods that contain vitamin D or supplements?
Okay, thank you for Tita. It's such a good question. So, what kind of source of vitamin D? I could say if we take vitamin D a day, it could be come from tuna or such fish have a more vitamin D if we compare to the other. But in other previously research, it could be from sunlight. So the problem is how big you get to for a sunbathe. This is very important. So it's not only for food but also can from sunlight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sir Fesara, for your answer. Since some of the news it says that we have to have the sun exposure around 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. It's a Philippine time, but maybe in Indonesia it's around 9 to 10 a.m.
Yeah,
so they suggest it's better if we have 10 to 15 minutes sun exposure.
For exposure. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Again, we would like to encourage our participants. If you have any questions, please feel free to type it in the Q&A, or you can raise a hand here if you want to ask directly. Kepada peserta, kami persilahkan jika ingin bertanya, please raise a hand atau bisa mengetik di bagian Q&A. Jika ada pertanyaan. Do we have any other questions? Okay, I guess there's no more questions. Okay, again, thank you so much to all the speakers, and also thank you so much to all participants who are attending this webinar.
Thank you. Yeah.
Before we end this webinar, let's hear a message from our beloved Education and Culture Attaché, Dr. Lily Nurlaili.
Thank you, Mbak Manet. Terima kasih, Mbak Manet. Thanks to all speaker from PUP, from Unsika, from Stikes Buleleng, and then from Unsida. Thanks, because your presentation is very good, and then a lot of experience and a lot of useful, not only for the participant from Indonesia, but that is useful for the participant from Philippines. And I hope this webinar series international about presentation of the research is still continue, because it is a very important thing. I just want to say, because of this situation, we still continue with the several research, and then after we have research, maybe we have found medicine to cover of COVID-19. And I hope all of the participant and all of the speaker still healthy and then still continue to the protocol everyday life. Don't forget using your masker and then hand sanitizer everywhere you are going. Thank you very much. And then from Atase Education KBRI Manila, saya mengucapkan terima kasih dan semoga materi hari ini bermanfaat buat kita semua. Sampai nanti bertemu tanggal 25, 26, dan 27 dengan paparan yang berbeda tetapi tetap tentang penelitian-penelitian yang berkaitan dengan COVID. Karena penelitian ini bermanfaat buat kita semua yang menunjukkan bahwa kita tidak diam walaupun kita bekerja di dalam rumah. Terima kasih. Dengan mengucapkan Alhamdulillahirobbil alamin, saya tutup acara hari ini dan selamat bekerja kembali. Salam sukses buat semuanya. Thank you very much and then
Thank you, Dr.
Alhamdulillah
Lily. Thank you.
and
Thank you.
yes, good morning, maraming salamat.
Thank you so much, Ibu Lili Nurlaili. Again, thank you so much to all the speakers and also to all participants. And please do not forget the reminder from Ibu Lili. Don't forget to follow the health protocol, especially wash your hands, wear a mask or wear a face shield for everyone's safety. Thank you so much. And for the information of our participants, we already shared the link for the certificate and also for your attendance and the e-material. Also, you can download the e-material in the link provided in the chat box. Again, thank you so much and have a nice day ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Terima
Dr.
kasih.
Lily. Thank you, Mr.
you.
Pesara.
Terima
Thank you,
kasih.
Joanna.
Nice to meet you.
Sir Besara.
Terima kasih,
Bye, thank you.
Profesor. Terima kasih, Bapak Versara. Terima kasih, Pak Irwan.
Ya Bu, terima kasih.
Sama-sama Bu.
Bagus.
Terima kasih.
Thank you for all
Bagus
the
semua
speakers.
paparannya.
Sehat selalu.
Luar biasa. Selamat istirahat. Saya
Ya, mohon
masih ada
izin Bu.
webinar satu lagi ini. Saya sambil 2 videonya. Satu lagi webinar ASEAN.
Ya, mohon izin.
Ya Bu,
Mohon
mohon
izin
izin Bu.
ya Bu. Terima kasih Bu.
Silakan
Ya,
ditutup.
Assalamualaikum.
Terima kasih. Selamat istirahat.
Terima kasih Bu Lili. Assalamualaikum.
Makasih Pak Irwan, luar biasa, Pak Vesara, Pak Uswa.